Well, it's been a little over 30 years since the last Mad Max movie, and a little over 25 years since anyone has attempted a Mad Max themed game. In 2015, we got both. Looking back at the 1990 version of Mad Max on the Nintendo Entertainment System, the game left a lot to be desired. The driving was pretty bad. The game was an absolute crapshoot of where do I go before I run out of gas, and I hope I don't run out of dynamite and get stuck behind a barrier. Serious props to Mindscape for trying, but like most movie-themed games in the 80s and 90s, it was pretty terrible. So will a new game pack all the action and carnage that we've come to expect from the Wasteland, or will it simply be another dud? Let's find out. I've often wondered why this idea wasn't used more often, with so much potential. I mean, everything that you could possibly want is there. A vast wasteland, people desperately clinging to life, bandits, murder, thieves, a society on the fringe of extinction. There's really so much potential. And it's not like the concept hasn't been tried before. Bethesda and id Software experimented with the concept in 2011's Rage, but the game was poorly executed, poorly optimized, and very repetitive. Well, apparently Avalanche Studios, the same people who brought us the Just Cause games, felt the same way that I did, and we finally got a game with some potential. So the question still stands. Is it good? Or are we simply looking at another failed experiment to convert a movie into a game? Let's dive right in. In Mad Max, you play as Max Rokitansky, a man who has lost everything more than once, and if you follow the movies, the story actually ties into the plot respectably well. The game starts with a cinematic of Max being chased down by a group of war boys. These war boys eventually catch Max and take all of his worldly possessions, including his prized interceptor, or the Black on Black as it's referred to. It is at this point that you meet Scabrous Scrotus, the main antagonist of the story, who is one of 3 sons of Immortan Joe from Mad Max Fury Road. And this is how the game loosely ties into the movie. After royally getting his ass kicked and being left for dead, Max stumbles half dead into the hideously deformed but amazingly skilled Chum Bucket, your personal mechanic and wingman that will ride in the back of your car, perform necessary repairs, and even load and shoot harpoons for you when needed. And this is essentially where the game begins. You will spend the rest of the game running around the wasteland collecting scrap, scouting the land, running missions, upgrading your new car, the Magnum Opus, and lowering the influence that Scrotus has over the wasteland. This can be done in various ways, such as destroying warboy camps, taking out regional mini-bosses, disarming minefields, destroying convoys, and collecting parts to upgrade the community hub in the region. This seems like a cool and novel idea at first, and don't get me wrong, it does have some benefits. For example, collecting parts will allow you to build a water station that refills your canteen, a fuel station that gasses up your car, food stations that refill your health, and will even be able to unlock an ammo station which will refill your shotgun shells, shivs, and even your thunderpoons. A sort of homemade rocket-propelled grenade. This can be done at all 4 communities throughout the wasteland, but to be honest, although Avalanche does a great job of trying to spice this system up, it basically just turns out to be busy work since the communities never actually get attacked in any way, shape, or form. So once you fully upgrade the first base, you can basically fast travel back and forth to it if you want to refill your ammo with ease. If you are a completionist though, this could add quite a bit of depth to the game. The combat in Mad Max is pretty fluid, but if you're expecting more of a shoot 'em up or even a craft your own weapon style of game, you're going to be pretty disappointed. Although there's plenty of upgrading to do, and Max can be fully upgraded through the game, allowing you to upgrade his armor and even his fists, you will spend the majority of the game beating the living crap out of everything that moves. In fact, even with a fully upgraded ammo pouch, you can only carry 7 shells, and these are pretty scarce in the open world. In some respects, it makes sense, since all the movies seem to take place in the outback of Australia. I do believe the game does as well. Although it is a little weird that no one in the game, or the movies for that matter, speak with an Australian accent. Actually, I take that back. I'm pretty sure the gyro pilot in Road Warrior did. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. Towards the end of the game, I was doing everything possible to avoid fist fighting, even running completely by wave after wave of enemies just to get to the car part or mini boss at the end. It isn't that combat's bad, it's just super repetitive. Even the mini bosses are lazily done. To start off, every single one looks absolutely identical. Apparently in the Wasteland, everyone is required to dress the same, Sometimes they have a different color skin, sometimes their armor might be a different color, but overall, they're basically identical. Combating these guys gets a bit scale too. To be fair, they do each have their own weakness. One guy might be weak against fire, one guy might be weak against explosions, but to be honest, on almost every single one, my strategy went something like stand in front of him. When he starts to swing, duck and roll behind him, bash him with a melee weapon if available until it breaks, then shoot him in the back, and finally stab him in the face with a shiv. Now that the bad stuff is out of the way, let's talk about the good stuff. The storyline of the game is pretty easy to follow, and honestly is pretty in-depth. The game does a great job with these historic relics, which actually turn out to be a note or a picture or sometimes a postcard explaining some of the backstory of what happened that brought the world to where it is today. It doesn't talk too much about the gas wars between the countries, but does give you some insight as to what life was like before things really started going to hell. These historical relics are all over the place in salvage locations and sometimes strongholds. These also make for a great place to collect scrap, which is basically the currency of the game. Scrap is very easy to collect and very abundant as well. But the more upgrades you unlock, the more you realize things start getting really expensive really quick. Most of the scrap you collect will be used towards upgrades in the magnum opus and your talents as well. Truth be told, I'm kind of a perfectionist and I like to full clear a zone before I move on. And after clearing the second zone, I was about 75% on the upgrades for the car, and about almost all of Max's upgrades unlocked as well, which by the time I cleared zone 3, I had banked about 10,000 scrap and literally stopped collecting it. On top of upgrading your gear in your car, Max will also collect Griffa points, which are essentially talent points. These points are earned by unlocking various achievements along the way and can be spent in abilities that decrease the amount of gas that you use or increase the amount of damage that you deal. There are also really nice passives that will allow you to collect more water from sources and even gain more health when eating. Along the journey, the coolest thing is we finally see Max warming up along the way. As you hand in these points, Max will initially be cold and hostile, but towards the end he's more accepting that there's hope not only for him, but mankind as well. Unfortunately, I don't want to spoil the story here too much, but events happen that change that later in the game, and before too long, Max is back to his violent ways again. The weapon system is pretty straightforward, and like I said before, if you were expecting to pick up a game full of guns and shooting, you aren't going to find that here. The weapons you do get are useful, but kind of a luxury also. The harpoon is the weapon you'll be using the most, and this is a weapon that is fixed to your car. It is upgradable, and once upgraded, you can rip doors and tires off of other cars and kill enemies with it. And you can even tear down towers and kill the very annoying snipers with it. You will eventually get a sniper rifle of your own, but again, it's fixed to the opus, so it's really only useful when you're out cruising the world. You will get the Thunderpoon, which is very useful to take out other vehicles, but again, you won't get this until you're about halfway through the game. It's pretty clear that they wanted a good portion of this game to revolve around the car. The weapons you typically carry with you on foot is your shotgun and some shivs, but the shotgun can also be upgraded, so it becomes pretty nice later on, even if you do have a serious shortage of ammo. Overall, the game is great, and I found it really enjoyable. Avalanche found a much better balance this time between storyline and busy work, and the game doesn't have nearly as much mindless content as Just Cause 2 did. The driving events are fun, and the races are a neat addition as well. The graphics are pretty good, and they've done a really good job ironing out some of the bugs that people were complaining about at launch. Would I recommend this game? Yes, absolutely. I found it to be really enjoyable, and it took me about 40 hours to fully beat. One very important caveat though, boys and girls, if you aren't in a rush, I would wait. This is one of those games that, although very good, doesn't have a ton of replay value to it, and if you're only into the storyline, it could be beaten much quicker. I have a feeling that we'll be seeing this game closer to the $20 price point within the next few months, so unless you feel the need to buy this immediately, save your money and just wait. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you got some useful information out of it. As always, it's been a pleasure. Take it easy. Alpha out.